Howdy ho. You know, the problem with doing this get-up is that I'm beginning to naturalize the accent. Yeah, I'm gonna get a number 1, medium with the Coke, and she's gonna be like, you know, like a bird trying to view from mildly different angles in an effort to ascertain just what in the Sam Hill is going on here. It has the word Hyrule in the title and takes place 100 years before Breath of the Wild. If you're a Zelda fan like I am, that means you just had to buy this game called Hyrule Warriors Age of Calamity, which kinda makes my review pointless, but I digress. If you don't know Warriors games, you basically play a hero in the field who murders small army after small army. This starts the game off on a mediocre foot, to be blunt, and is further hampered by a mostly abysmal frame rate. More on that later. You just go from yellow dot to yellow dot on the map, obliterating scores of enemies. This ranges from the usual underwear stains to actual bosses. But it all doesn't matter because you're gonna do the same thing anyway, combo your way to a glitzy finish. While it does initially feel cool and fun, it wears itself out quick after several hours, and even though you end up having a relatively decent sized roster towards the end, and the ability for Link to use various weapons, the truth is that once Link gets the Master Sword, that's not really a spoiler, right? He becomes OP. And then to make matters worse, once waifu Impa is upgraded, she too becomes massively OP. They are the closest characters to Zelda through the game, so it makes sense, but it seems tiresome when you use anyone else and realize how they mostly pale in comparison to Link and waifu Impa. There is some attempted variety in combat through the use of the Sheikah Slate and elemental magic, but those only serve to make things easier. Ease and monotony are not two things well combined. But you're excited to pilot a divine beast, right? Be prepared for an even worse frame rate and what boils down to on-rail shooting. While I admit I derived some enjoyment early on in the game, the only thing keeping me going forward was the story. Just shy of 20 hours, I watched the credits roll. On the way there, I found myself only being pulled by the storyline because it's Zelda. The map is filled with icons. Hollow icons, which are mostly administrative delivery quests for upgrades. The side missions themselves hold to the same yellow dot pattern as the core game with mildly different objectives. Yeah, I'm beating up on that thick berry. But I hate to break it to you, the mid-game grind that sort of forces you to do these to level up only reinforces the monotony. Sure, you can upgrade your weapons, maybe cook some food for almost unnoticeable boosts, but that all holds little weight. The core content of this game is actually the story itself, which gives you insight into the past and is pretty much the only content that genuinely pulls you along. The frame rate here is absolute murder on how well my eye sockets and button pushers coordinate. I admit coming off the two other current gen consoles has spoiled me, but this is far beyond just being a dip here and there. It is almost always a bad frame rate, sometimes even dipping into what is likely between 10 to 20 FPS due to the lack of adaptive VSync. This is clearly a technical limitation of the Switch, holding back a smoother experience simply because any further downscale of the graphics would have had it fallen too far below Breath of the Wild. But, and I say this with gleeful positivity, the animation is surprisingly good. I can only surmise Nintendo themselves did the cinematics and animation as they are of rather high caliber. This also leads into the only character that really matters, Zelda Wally. Tarako is easily the star of the show, and I don't want to spoil his almost Pixar level of existence. Though waifu Impa sometimes stole the show too. But the story itself? Just know that all the things you know don't pan out like you would expect, and this is simply just another victory. It's Zelda. It's the Breath of the Wild universe. I pre-ordered it because there was no question in my mind I had to play it despite knowing what the Warriors core gameplay meant. And yet I can't help but recognize that this is just filler. Nintendo themselves is the only saving grace for this game, bestowing their quality into the animation and characters, bringing them to life, once again the highlight being Zelda Wally, and keeping me going. The rest of the game is only cool and fun for several hours, and the frame rate absolutely destroys the gameplay. All this game did was show me how much more I just want Breath of the Wild 2. I give Hyrule Warriors Age of Calamity a 7.5 out of 10. See you next time on the Gaming 5.